going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Cashed Out Podcast. I'm your host, Silas, and excited to be back shooting the podcast again. I feel like it's been a little bit of a hiatus there. My consistency kind of changed a little bit. I thought I'd be able to stay more steady with putting these out, but you know, you've got client work coming in and you got shoots that you got to go ahead and handle. I got to take those first and then come back and do the podcast when available. So apologize for the delay, but it's going to be a good show today. Actually going to be doing just a little bit of chatting about the Lumix S5 Mark II, that camera. I've done a couple videos on that camera and it's absolutely been such a phenomenal workhorse. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk a little bit about some of my photography challenges that I've been doing for myself just to kind of help keep myself sharp and keep things rolling from there. And just kind of chat a little bit more in terms of what I see coming down the pipe and, you know, where we want to go from here. So not a formal structure, not going to be, you know, overly structured with this podcast today. Just going to talk a little bit about what's been going on and, you know, we'll go from there. So kind of interesting. I was actually checking out the YouTube studio, not the actual recording studio, but actually YouTube studio on the website. And I noticed that they actually are launching a podcast feature on YouTube now. And this is something that I had seen maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think YouTube had actually popped it up. I guess they were doing like a quick test of the functionality. And I saw it, and before I could even do anything with it, the option had gone away. So this past week, they actually sent me an email saying that if I'd like to tap into their podcast option, it's now available. And from the looks of it, it looks like all they're doing is just basically taking a playlist. If you take your podcast, your video podcast like we do, and you put it on your channel, they can take that playlist and turn it into a podcast. Now, I don't know how that's all going to look in terms of actually being able to find it, whether or not it'll be available on the other platforms like, you know, Apple Music or not Apple Music, Apple Podcast or some of these other platforms. So that part, I don't know for sure, but it just seems like YouTube is starting to take that transition over into podcasting, which is interesting. It's a smart idea for them, I believe. I feel like that market is, you know, there's competitors there, but if you've got the weight that YouTube has in terms of just the audience, it makes it a little bit more appealing. So we've put our podcast on there. I'm just curious to learn more and see more how it works, how it flows. I initially thought that I'd be able to take it off of like Podbean and some of our other broadcasting platforms, but I think I'll leave it on there for now until I know for sure how this YouTube podcast thing is gonna work out in the long run. That was something interesting there. But the other thing that I did notice in terms of YouTube is they're actually doing away with the product tagging feature. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, it looked like basically with YouTube as a creator, if you talked about a product, like for us, we talk about camera gear, tech, those kind of things. So I would be able to tag a product in the video. And then whenever people clicked on the product tag, they would go and see the product on whatever website it was tied to. And then I would get like 20 cents per click or something like that. It was something ridiculous. I really didn't see much profit off of that as a creator. So it's interesting to see that they're doing away with that program. And they mentioned that they're actually going to be starting their own affiliate program tied to YouTube. So instead of using like Amazon affiliates, it would be YouTube affiliates. Now, what's interesting about that in the email, they mentioned that they are still finding partners to be able to tie in to the affiliate program. So I'm very curious to see who YouTube will partner with in terms of that affiliate program, but I'm also more curious to see what are they going to do in terms of allowing other, competitor affiliate links on their platform. Because if YouTube has their own affiliate program, I'm curious if they're going to say, hey, you can only use YouTube's affiliates. You can't use, you know, Amazon's affiliate, or you can't use, you know, whatever sponsor you have's affiliate. So that'll be something interesting to see down the road. And they just recently sent out this email, I guess like a couple of days ago. So I just recently found out about it. So I'm curious to see how that'll work out. Very interesting times on the platform. You know, obviously it's always changing. It seems like big tech or social media platforms are always shifting. And, you know, even with Instagram, it's kind of cool to see that they're going back back now to doing more or putting more weight back into photos, right? For a season there, it felt like the only thing you could post on Instagram was just reels. It had to be short video. And that was really annoying. I was not a fan of, I'm really not a fan of reels. It's one of those, like, it's a necessary evil. I created them because we needed to. But on Instagram, I would love to just be able to post photos and have those get the same traction as reels did. So it's interesting to see now that they've tried being TikTok. A lot of these companies have tried competing with TikTok. And now that TikTok is on, allegedly, it seems like it's on the verge of getting banned here in the US, some of these companies are starting to kind of scale back a little bit more, which it's annoying to me because, and I've talked about this in the past, just to be able to see how these big tech companies are just copycats, right? They're just kind of going with what's trending. Like YouTube pulled out the shorts and Instagram pulled out more reels just to be able to compete with TikTok. And I'm like, why change your entire business model just to keep up with TikTok? So platforms come and go, right? Vine was a big platform a few years ago. For those of you who are younger, Vine was almost like the pre-TikTok for a little bit. You could be able to put short videos. There was a lot of comedy, a lot of sketch comedians came off of there, but Vine was big for a while, and then Vine was gone, right? The trends don't typically last. They'll come and go. So I don't know why these companies, I get trying to monetize and capitalize on a trend, but to really shift a lot of their weight, they shifted it from photos, in Instagram's case, shifted it from photos having enough reach and enough weight to being just all reels basically dominating, and YouTube shifting from basically having long form content to all being shorts. So now it's like, they're kind of in this limbo space because I don't think they're really seeing the kind of traction that they thought they would get trying to compete with TikTok. But I also don't think it was really good for the creators. There's a lot of creators, especially on Instagram, that weren't video creators, and they felt like they had to shift to become video creators just to keep up with the algorithm, or even on YouTube. There were people like me. I don't do a ton of shorts, right? I'll do shorts here and there, but that's not like my go-to. When I sit down and shoot a YouTube video, I'm not thinking like, man, I can't wait to make this 15-second video, right? No, I take my time with the videos. I do research, I prepare, I do a lot of B-roll. I love being able to take my time and create long form content. And that's why I put it on YouTube. If I wanted to do short form content, I would go to TikTok, but that's not what I want to do. So for YouTube to try and shift and keep up with TikTok, it just made no sense to me. And the YouTube Shorts program, I guess you could call that a monetization. It's like nothing. I think you have to get like 1 million views on YouTube Shorts and 1,000 subscribers. I don't remember what the parameters were, but it's just an absurd kind of thing, because really for 1 million views on a standard video on YouTube, if you got 1 million views, that in most cases would be pretty profitable. But when it comes to shorts, you get 1 million views on shorts and it's like, here's $5, something like that. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but it was not very profitable. So it's good to see that some of these companies are starting to get back to what they were known for, right? Like when I would go to Instagram, I don't go to Instagram for reels. I go to Instagram for photos, right? That's what they were known for. And I'm cool with having reels on there. I love video. I'm cool with having reels on there. Some of them are hilarious, but I just feel like the weight shouldn't be solely on reels. If they can just keep it even to where your photos will get just as much reach as a reel would, that would be fine. I'm perfectly cool with that. But when they were putting more weight on one than the other, that's the point where I'm just like, not really feeling it. So that's interesting. Just some interesting news that I've seen this week, and it's cool to see kind of the shift happening. You never know with this landscape. It's just one of those cases where you kind of get ready for anything, and then whatever comes. Going back to what I wanted to chat about first here today was just really talking about the Lumix S5ii and my transition back from a Canon shooter to a Panasonic or a Lumix shooter has been awesome, and it's really cool because it feels like I never left, even though I hadn't shot Lumix for years. It's one of those things that I've noticed when, especially kind of coming back. So I shot Canon for, for a ton of years. Like honestly, I think since probably since 2016, maybe. I'd say since 2016, I've probably been a Canon shooter, and I shot Lumix since I started photography from like 2013, 2014. So shot Lumix for a couple years, and then switched to Canon because the dual pixel autofocus is just phenomenal. When I started doing more video, it was hard to shoot video the way that I wanted to shoot using the Lumix cameras, just because the autofocus wasn't there. The image quality was there. I loved the look of the Lumix cameras, but the autofocus just kind of held it back. That's the original reason why I switched to Canon, and Canon was great. I never had any qualms with Canon for photography. My photos with Canon were always awesome. The video side is where Canon, obviously, and we've talked about their cripple hammer and how they hindered their non-cinema line cameras. So their DSLRs or their mirrorless cameras, primarily, obviously, the push for those is for photography first. And you can tell, right? You can tell that obviously video was second thought to them. So that I tried to make it work with Canon, right? I went to the Canon R3, and that was probably the closest thing that I got with Canon to just having the perfect camera for me. I shoot both photo and video, so I needed something that can nail it both for photo and video. So the R3 was awesome. No overheating, none of those issues, but it just was so expensive, and sticking with Canon with the glass and everything, it just got so pricey to be able to keep up with it. So coming back to Lumix, I love it. Like I totally love the Lumix camera and the Lumix line. Like everything about it that I've experienced, it's so refreshing because the menus are easy to navigate. I can find what I need pretty simply. Like it's well organized. The camera itself, like it's been such a dream to not have to worry whether or not the camera can keep up, right? And to not have to worry about limitations like recording limits, overheating. Those kind of things are not a thought with the Lumix S5 Mark II. This thing has just been an absolute beast. The Leica glass on this camera, and so I know I'm a little bit all over the place right now. We're just gonna be chatting here. There's no like formal structure here talking about point A, point B. This is why we do the podcast, right? So it can be a little bit more conversational. But talking about the glass on the Lumix camera, so I use the S Pro glass. Obviously, I think they have that partnership with Leica. So the quality of image from these lenses are phenomenal. I've really been surprised and actually impressed. And I don't know why why I was surprised by it, just kind of living in the Canon world for all these years. You almost kind of feel like, Canon's got the best glass or blah, blah, blah. But really, I'm very, very impressed with the Leica glass on these Lumix cameras because the image quality is so sharp. And it just has the feel that it creates. I'm really enjoying it, and it's hard to describe because the style of image that the Lumix lens creates is totally different from what Canon creates, and it's hard to explain. But it's really like I haven't been able to put words to it, the feel that it produces, but I really love it. I really love it. Like been shooting a lot more photos, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here later on, but been shooting a lot more photos because we've had a lot more video work over the past few months. So I wanted to make sure that I keep myself sharp. And as I've been shooting with the S5 II, man, I've just continually seeing little things about the ability to be able to capture details, the fineness of the details with these lenses has been great, and I'm glad to see that because for a pro line, when you see pro on a lens, I'm like, I expect high quality, right? But that hasn't been the case with all the lenses, so it's good to see that they're actually living up to the hype with that. And that the lenses, the glass on these Lumix cameras has been absolutely fantastic. Now the camera itself, the S5 Mark II, I just recently finished recording a video talking about some of my go-to features, some of my favorite features, and it's one of those things that these aren't like sexy features. I feel like that the Mark II is such it's a workman-like camera. It doesn't have a ton of like flashy stuff, right? There's not a ton of flashy features. There's just a ton of features that are useful that you need on an everyday basis. Like for me, the full-size HDMI port is absolutely fantastic. Like Canon always had like the micro HDMI ports, which, you had to find the right cable. You had to find a HDMI to micro or mini or whatever they were. And it became annoying because you now end up with 2 or 3 HDMI cables that you're never going to use once you sell your Canon camera, but that you had to get because that's the only thing that would work with the tiny ports that Canon had. But now coming to the S5 Mark II, you got a full-size HDMI port. I can use the HDMI cables that I already have, and it's just been awesome, especially when we do streaming, when we do live streaming of events. I don't have to worry about like the little micro HDMI cable coming out of the port. I know for sure, like, hey, if I have a HDMI cable on hand, or if the client does, we can just utilize that. And it's super simple. It just kind of it's minimized my bag because I don't have to bring a bunch of extra attachments and add-ons just to make it work with the other cables. So the full-size HDMI has been phenomenal. The USB-C power delivery, money, absolutely money. And I think the R3 had USB-C power delivery, but the R6, I wasn't able to do power delivery without needing the other, what do you call it, the DC coupler and the dummy battery to be able to do that. So it's really been a lifesaver. It's been phenomenal, and I talked more about that in the recent video about this. But this camera just has so many useful features, and really the other thing that I was kind of surprised with is once I got this camera in my hand, it literally is just like, it's not as big as the R3. So that's the one thing, like if you're used to bigger cameras, if you're used to kind of like that deep grip, to be able to really have a feel for it, I like that kind of thing. And I'll probably end up getting like the battery grip for the Lumix S5ii, just so I can have that same feel, but it's not crucial. So if you're used to those deeper grips, those bigger grips, then it'll take some adjusting to. But really, I thought like the smaller body would be like a distraction for me, because I was shooting the R3 for so long. I thought that it would be weird coming back to the smaller body, but you don't really notice it, especially when you're doing photos. You don't really notice the smaller body because it just if they've done a really good job of just designing it to feel really good in the hand and pairing it up with a nice lens, kind of like I have the 24-70 that I use, the S Pro, and I have the 70-200 S Pro as well. Pairing those two up with a body is such a nice feel, because the 70-200 is pretty cool because it's got the ring around it, so I can kind of grip the bottom of the ring and then be able to have it. It's almost like you're shooting a gun in a way, but it just feels really nice. And that was surprising to me because I thought the smaller body would be an issue, but it absolutely has not been. It's felt really good in the hand. So overall, like, man, I'm loving. I totally am loving the S5 Mark II. I was I was a little bit nervous, kind of switching over from Canon so abruptly, right? Because once I saw the S5 Mark II, I was actually looking for a second camera to replace the Canon R6, because the R6 with the overheating issues, it became a hassle, right? The R6 had become a hassle because I couldn't lean on it as a second camera for weddings or events, because the recording limit, the 30-minute recording limit, and the overheating, I just couldn't trust it. So I was looking for a B cam to the R3, and that's how I ended up coming across the S5 Mark II. And I was actually originally going to buy it as just a B camera, but the more I looked into it, the more I was like, you know what? This thing is money. Like, I should just get 2 of these. So diving into it, I was a little bit nervous because I was like, man, I just switched out all my Canon gear for this guy. Hopefully it'll perform, but it's knocked it out of the park. Like, I am super glad that I switched it over. And just like, I mean, for real, the overheating, the lack of overheating, it's something so simple, and it's been really we've talked about it ad nauseum, but you just can't help but think about it, the way that it's been designed. So Lumix has basically designed the top where the hot shoe of the camera is, that little container. I don't know how to describe it, but that little container is being utilized to handle the heating. So basically, it'll take in the air and take in the cool air, kick out the hot air. Basically, the fan and everything is built into the little top of the camera lens, or the little top of the camera body. And that's such a brilliant thought. It's such a brilliant way to be able to do heat management that it just blows me away to think that Canon didn't want to do that, right? I'm like, why did you do that? Like the Canon solution was to put the big fan behind the R5C, and just it looks weird, right? As opposed to doing the way Lumix just did and just kind of funneling it up there. It's just the design, the creativity, the way that they've done this camera is just really, really good. I can rant and rave about the S5 Mark II forever. It's a really good camera. I am super glad that I made the decision to switch over. So no disappointments, no regrets when it comes to switching to the S5 II. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about today was my daily photo challenge. Now, I'm gonna do a video on this, kind of not sure, but might talk a little bit more in depth about it. But the daily photo challenge. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing a lot of video work lately. We've had a lot of client work, a lot of events to shoot. So that's been really awesome. And I love video. I love both photo and video. Video is they're just different, right? They allow you to be able to express your creativity in a different style. But since we've been doing a lot of video, I didn't want my photo skills to get dull, right? Because I still do photography. I still enjoy it. And I always want to make sure that I'm on top of the game with both of them. So I decided to do it for myself. I was going to do, initially, the idea was to do a 30-day photo challenge to where I just take one photo a day for 30 days, right? So that was the initial idea. And I started off good, right? I think the first week, banging it out, right? And then going into has it been a week? Yeah, I think it's been 3 weeks so far. But the first week was good. I was kind of knocking them out, and then going into the end of the first week, going into like the second week, really kind of started slowing down because I got caught up obviously with life. Life happens, shoots run long, things have to be rescheduled, there's just always stuff going on with life that sometimes you don't have the opportunity to slow down and be able to capture a photo that day, right? And that was the first lesson that doing this photo a day session actually taught me, is that we're too busy, right? It's just like life can get so busy that you really don't take the time to slow down and actually enjoy and soak in all that's around us and really appreciate that. And doing this photo challenge, one of the first things that I've learned is that it's forced me to be able to kind of slow down a little bit and pay attention to the things around me, pay attention to the beauty around me, right? Because if I'm looking to take a photo, I'm not looking just for and this is what was cool about it, is that I wasn't just looking for like the traditional cool thing to take a picture of, right? It wasn't just like the sunset. It wasn't just like the pretty flower or whatever. It was literally, it forced me to slow down and actually look. Even at night, I did some night photography where we got back home late, and really the only time that I had to take the photo was at night. And there was a moonlight out. There was some interesting shots that could be captured at night. So I forced myself to go out, to slow down and actually take in some night photography, actually take in some of the beautiful things that are available in the dark. And this was a really cool thing because it forced me to it's really been a challenge to kind of slow down and be like, you know what? You don't have to go 100 miles an hour, right? Like, yeah, there's life going on, but you can actually slow down and appreciate the beautiful things that are around you. Slow down and appreciate some of the things that you've overlooked that you can now turn into a beautiful image. And being able to do that has really helped my creativity to be able to kind of look at a scene. Like, honestly, I was grilling on the Blackstone, and man, the Blackstone grill is fantastic, right? If you don't have a Blackstone and you like to grill, look into that. That thing is really money. But I was cooking on the Blackstone, and it was one of those cases where as I was waiting for the grill to heat up, I saw a shot of like the oil. We have a little oil squirter and a water squirter right below the grill. And the garage door was open. I was grilling out of the garage because it's still kind of chilly here in Ohio. So I didn't want all the wind to just blow out the flames. So I was grilling in the garage with the door open. And it was cool to see like there's a neat shot under the Blackstone where the light from outside was coming in, and it created just a nice frame for the water and the oil squirters. And it looked awesome So just being able to take that scenario where it's nothing sexy, right? I'm not a food reviewer, I'm not a cooking channel. So I never would be taking photos of that scenario. But because I was intentionally looking for photos to take, it allowed me to slow down and actually be able to see the coolness, the beauty in that particular scene. So that's been one of the blessings, some of the cool blessings of doing this photo challenge is being forced to actually slow down and appreciate what's around you, being forced to actually take the time to find the beauty in everything that's around you, to find the shots in scenarios that maybe you wouldn't have seen the shots, right? Because a lot of times as photographers, we tend to want that like the money shot, like the perfect shot, right? You want to set everything up to be perfect, but the cool thing about this challenge is that sometimes it's not perfect, right? Sometimes even when you are shooting, when you are on site with a client, it's not the perfect scenario. You have to learn how to adjust. You have to learn how to use your creativity to find workarounds, to be able to find ways to make lemonade out of lemons, right? To take a not perfect scenario and be able to create something beautiful out of it. So that's been one of the first little gems that I've gotten from this challenge. Whoops, I bumped my mic there. But that's been one of the first gems that I've gotten from this challenge. And the other thing too is that it's helped with consistency, right? Trying to do like a photo a day has definitely helped with consistency in terms of being aware of how I shoot, being aware of how to not only maintain the style, because if there's a shot that I like, trying to figure out how to recreate that shot style again and to do it in a different scenario. Like if I shot it in the garage, it looked really good and I want to replicate that kind of style outside, maybe some in a different area, learning and training myself to be able to do that, because it's a challenge, right? It's something to be able to do, to be able to keep your skills sharp. So that's been really awesome. But the other thing too is it's taught me a lot of leniency, right? Because I'll be honest, I haven't nailed it every day. Like there's been days that have come and gone that I haven't gotten my photo, but it's taught me to be lenient with myself, because as creators, we tend to be like our own worst enemy, right? We are our biggest critics. We put more pressure on ourselves than anybody else does. And I feel like most people that are achievers or performers put pressure on themselves. But when it comes to creating, when you're doing photo, video, anything creative, I feel like we have much more of a critical eye on our work than other people do. Some people might see our work and be like, oh my gosh, that looks gorgeous. But for us, the first thing we might notice is, oh man, I screwed up the lighting on here, or, I missed this angle, or blah, blah, blah. We're quick to judge ourselves negatively. So being able to learn how to give myself some leniency, give myself a break, honestly, because there's some days where, there's just no way I would have been able to get a photo that day, and just being able to say, hey, it's all good, right? The main goal isn't really to get the one photo a day or the couple photos a day. The main goal is to really continue to keep my creative juices flowing and keep myself sharp as a photographer, to keep my eyes on what it takes to create a good image, and to continue to find creative ways to capture images. So that's been really helpful for me, is just being able to give myself some leniency. And I didn't think I would get this from a photo challenge, right? That's what's really been exciting. These are some of like the intangibles, some of the things that I never thought would come about from doing this photo challenge. And it's been really cool, because it's allowing me to be able to take those things, and it's actually allowing me to be able to add new content, because I don't know if I've announced it yet, but we actually released a how to start photography mini course. And this is something that I say, I'm not doing like a big hullabaloo about it. It's something that I've seen as valuable. We've had a few people ask us about it, a few friends, a few clients ask us about teaching them photography. So obviously, with having limited time, the best way that I saw to do that was to actually just make a course and allow people to be able to teach themselves how to do photography, doing it with me through the video, not necessarily in person. Eventually we want to be able to do in-person sessions with some of the people that are local, but we just recently released the mini course of it, and we're going to release the full course down the road. But being able to do this photography challenge, it's almost like taking me back to when I was a new photographer, right? That's kind of the feel that I've been getting lately. And it's something that I have an excitement of photography. I have this just, what am I going to shoot today? I've got my camera with me all the time, and it's difficult, because when photography becomes your job, when this is what you do for a living or what you do during the day, it's harder to take your camera with you all the time because you're like, I've just had it for like, 4 to 6 hours. But doing this challenge it's almost like re-sparked that excitement, that new photographer excitement in me. And it's allowing me to now be able to see things from the perspective of a newer photographer, from the perspective of someone who isn't necessarily as seasoned as I am, but it's allowing me to be able to take my mind and start thinking creatively again. And this is helping offer more content that we can apply into the course as we finish off the full course to be able to add more value to people. So it's been a phenomenal journey, and definitely like a fantastic little challenge, and it's produced a lot of good value that I'm very surprised that it has. So it's one of those things that you never know where things will lead you. You kind of do things that you feel like, okay, this will be fun to do, or this will be good for me to try out, and then you get a lot of benefit, a lot of good value coming out of that. So the photo a day challenge, it hasn't been exactly a photo a day like I talked about, but the basic, let me just say the photography, some kind of photography every day or a couple of days, that's not as sexy of a title as a photo a day challenge. So we'll just keep the photo a day challenge. So, but that challenge has been really helpful, and I think I'll keep doing it even past the 30 days. I'll keep doing it just to continue to keep myself sharp. And I've noticed a lot of cool stuff coming out of that. And honestly, one thing I almost forgot to mention too was that this has been the best way, and I highly recommend this as a new photographer. Do a photo a day challenge for yourself, because this has been the best way for me to truly master a new camera, because the Lumix S5ii is new to me. I haven't shot Lumix in years, like I mentioned earlier. So doing this challenge has allowed me to learn this camera way faster than I would have if I wasn't shooting something every day or every other day, right? It's allowed me to stay consistent. It allowed me to learn like the ins and outs, how to adjust the white balance quickly, how it reacts in low light situations, how to, what are my sweet spots with the camera. I've learned so much about this camera like over a 2-week window that I would never have gotten that if I wasn't shooting something every day with it. So if you're a newer photographer and you want to step up your game, you want to accelerate your skills quickly, if you don't have enough client work to keep you busy, do a photo a day challenge, whatever, a photo every other day. Do some kind of challenge to yourself where you're regularly taking photos, and you will master your camera quicker than you can imagine. And this is what's cool, is that it doesn't matter, like the photo doesn't have to be perfect, right? We have this pressure to feel like everything needs to be Instagram worthy, or everything needs to be, print worthy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be captured. So if you take that photo and it's horrendous, like in terms of like technical side of things, like if the lighting is off, if the shadows are off, that's fine. Just capture it and learn from it, because the goal is to really be able to see the progression over the month or over the 3-4 weeks that you're taking these regularly, to start to see how you started, and then after the 30 days where you are as a photographer, and how your eye has improved, how your camera control has improved, how your lighting, your exposure techniques has improved. Those are the things that I've really seen to be beneficial. So if you're listening to this and you want to learn photography, you want to start picking that up, definitely do yourself a challenge. Give yourself a challenge to take a photo a day, or just something to be able to be consistent with using your camera on a regular basis, because it's just like anything. Photography is just like any skill, right? Repetition is the mother of all skills, and photography is no different. The more reps you get, the better you learn, the quicker you become, more proficient at it. So that's been, I guess, my thoughts on that, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. Like I said, I'm going to keep doing it, be able to see, hopefully kind of get some more experiences that we can bring back to the table and have them be beneficial and useful to you guys. So that's it for today, guys. I think we'll kind of land the ship here in terms of this podcast for today. So I was definitely excited to have a pocket of time. Honestly, like things have been so hectic that today it's Saturday. It's early morning on a Saturday. I literally was just like, I have got to record this podcast, and if I don't, it's not going to happen. So it's cool to be able to find those pockets of time to be able to put it down, just take some time to record, to chat with you. And it always energizes me, because it gets me pumped up to see, okay, what's going to be the next thing that we talk about. So hope you guys enjoyed this podcast today. Definitely stay tuned. Be sure to like and follow us on all the podcast platforms. I'm really not sure where you're going to be watching this, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Apple, or watching. If you're watching the video podcast, obviously it's on YouTube. But if you're listening, it'll be on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, all those other things, wherever you're listening to. It's been great having you on here, and hopefully we'll hear from you or see you on the next one. And if you are interested in the photography course, be sure to check us out, cashedout.com. I'll link it in the description. The link to the photography course. We've got the crash course released, the How to Start Photography crash course. So that's available on our website, and you can be able to access that and check it out from there. So anyway, we'll catch up with you guys later. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection Sunday. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. See ya.